President Isaac Herzog arrived at the White House for a meeting with President Biden, and it comes as U.S. military support to Israel could be in jeopardy. Humanitarian groups say Israel has failed to meet today's U.S. deadline to improve the flow of aid into Gaza. CNN's Arlette Saenz is at the White House, and Kylie Atwood is with me here in studio. Arlette, first to you, how much will this shape the meeting?
Well, Pamela, we expect this meeting between President Joe Biden and Israeli President Isaac Herzog to kick off any minute now. It is unclear, though, whether President Biden will specifically bring up this 30-day deadline that is today for Israel to meet some standards to try to surge additional humanitarian aid into Gaza. You'll remember that about a month ago on this day, Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin had sent a letter to Israel outlining certain steps they wanted them to take to surge more aid into Gaza, while also saying that if they did not, it could risk violating U.S. law that governs foreign military assistance, really raising questions about whether the U.S. might withhold any additional military aid for Israel. Now, sources have told our colleagues MJ Lee and Jenny Hansler that they are not expecting any formal announcement from the U.S. today or any formal report on this matter. There is a belief within the U.S. government that there are more steps that Israel can take, but so far, the White House and the State Department and U.S. have not outlined whether they will be responding in any way to this 30-day deadline. Now, as you noted, there is a group of about 8 humanitarian aid organizations who have said that Israel has not met those standards that were set by the U.S. Part of those standards including about 350 humanitarian aid trucks going into Gaza each day and about 50 to 100 commercial trucks being able to enter in Gaza. These aid groups say that that simply was not met. But this meeting is also playing out not just as there is this deadline for Israel to surge more aid into Gaza, but also as the U.S. is quite eager to end this conflict in the Middle East. But so far, it seems that those ceasefire and hostage release talks really have been at a standstill, leaving open the question of whether this can even be achieved before President Biden leaves office in January.
And there are questions about that. What can be achieved? Kylie, how much leverage does the Biden administration have as it enters its final 2 months in power?
They have very little leverage at this point, but they still have some. The Biden administration is in control of the levers of government at this point. So if they wanted to exert the leverage that they have, they could. Indications from the reporting that MJ Lee has from sources that the Biden administration isn't going to make any policy changes in response to this letter and what Israel has not done when it comes to surging resources to make sure that humanitarian situation in Gaza is in a better place than it was 30 days ago. The fact that they're not going to make policy changes is going to create a lot of criticism for them. It's going to open the floodgates because you have these humanitarian organizations who are saying not only has Israel not lived up to the criteria that were very explicitly laid out by the Biden administration, by the Secretary of State and by the Secretary of Defense, but also that Israel has made the conditions even worse in Gaza in the last 30 days. So these humanitarian and aid organizations, rest assured, they're going to be quite frustrated that the Biden administration penned this letter and now isn't actually going to do anything with the pressure, with the threats that they said could potentially, be imposed if Israel didn't follow through. So I think that's an area to watch. It also begs the question as to how effective a letter like this even was to send. If you're not actually going to follow through on the threats that you lay out in the letter, and you aren't seeing the results that you were hoping to see, according to the scoreboard that these aid organizations put together, then what was the point in the first place of doing this? So they do have some leverage, but it doesn't appear at this point that they're willing to use it.
Yeah, I mean, those are very fair questions. Why send a letter in the first place if you're not going to enforce it? Make good on those threats. Kylie Atwood, Arlette Saenz, thank you. We're following more unrest in Amsterdam, where riot police arrested 3 people overnight after violence once again broke out on the streets of the Dutch capital. Video posted to social media captured the moment a tram caught fire after rioters lit fireworks inside of it while appearing to chant anti-Semitic slurs. The city has been under emergency measures since last week when Israeli soccer fans were beaten and injured in violent clashes in the city after a soccer game. CNN's Salma Abdelaziz is following the story from London. Salma, what do we know about this latest round of violence there? So disturbing.
Yes, so more unrest on Monday night. I do believe we have that footage to show you of that tram that's been set on fire. Authorities say that's because there was groups of people who were throwing around stones, wooden pallets, poles, and yes, fireworks, some of those fireworks landing in that tram, setting it ablaze. Riot police were quick to move into the square in the western part of the city. They made 3 arrests, according to the authorities. They warned people to stay away, and this is just the latest round of arrest. As you mentioned, there's been unrest, violence in Amsterdam for days now that really crescendoed around this football match between a local Israeli team and a local Dutch team on Thursday evening. After that match, dozens of Israeli soccer fans were chased down, beaten, wounded, injured. The violence was described as anti-Semitic by Dutch authorities and foreign leaders. Prime Minister Netanyahu scrambled planes to evacuate Israeli citizens still in Amsterdam. At the time, the Dutch Prime Minister was quick to hop on the phone with Prime Minister Netanyahu and promised that calm would return to Amsterdam. Israel's foreign minister said he expected to see arrests. He expected to see severe punishment for any perpetrators. And clearly, you see that the Dutch authorities are making those moves on the ground, trying to restore calm and bring any assailants to justice.
Yeah, what else is going on to maintain the peace there, given the violence that's erupting?
Yes, so there's been some strong security measures that have been taken place by the Dutch authorities. Key among them was banning protest for several days. Riot police said that was in order to try to return to normalcy, to maintain that calm. They've also asked people to submit any social media videos, to submit any material that might be able to help them identify the assailants behind this attack. Again, the Dutch Prime Minister was unequivocal in his language. He described these attacks as horrific, as anti-Semitic, said that they are appalling and ashamed the country, absolutely vowed to take these steps. But Prime Minister Netanyahu has said he will take his own steps as well. Israel is reviewing the security measures for any sports events that might be potentially attended by their citizens, and new guidance could be issued.
All right, Salma, thank you so much. And still ahead this hour, it's a custom carried out by the outgoing First Lady inviting her successor to the White House, why Melania Trump is expected to decline Jill Biden's invitation tomorrow.